For a long time, the universe served as a stage for power struggles, but no species believed they were destined to rule more than the conquerors of the Vaxis dominion. Birthright, their kingdom expanded across hundreds of star systems. They had trampled weaker civilizations, absorbing them or deleting them entirely. Now their eyes locked onto a new target, Earth. Humanity was an unusual species, one that, by all measures, should have perished in its infancy. And yet, against insurmountable odds, it flourished. They weren't as large as the empires of old, but their perseverance worried the Rexus Council. Humanity's rapid technological progress, their uncanny ability to survive any threat with minimal resources, and above all, their refusal to be boxed in enraged the Dominion. Seated at the head of the Vexus Council was Zulker, the Supreme Commander. Tall, imposing, and clad in ceremonial armor, his dark scales gleamed under the artificial light of the chamber. His gaze narrowed as he gave the order. Earth received the transmission. This is your only chance, his voice thundered. Submit to the Dominion and accept your role as inferiors, or face total annihilation. You have 3 planetary rotations to comply. On the other side of the galaxy, in New Geneva, Earth's capital, General Adrian Garfield, commander of the Earth Defense Force, received the message. She sat stone-faced in a room filled with top military officials and advisors. Silence filled the chamber as the VXS ultimatum echoed through the speakers. No panic, only calculation. After a long pause, Garfield finally broke the quiet. This isn't the first time someone's tried to scare us, she said flatly. Honestly, I'm almost bored. Colonel Mark Beckett, her second in command, a pragmatist and strategic genius, raised an eyebrow. How serious is this threat? He asked, fingers gliding over his tablet. According to star charts, their fleet is massive. They've raised entire systems, but they've never faced us directly. They're using intimidation, he continued, but they underestimate us. Garfield leaned forward, her voice a whisper. Let them. She leaned back, calculating. The Vexus expected terror, submission. What they didn't know was that humanity had evolved. They were no longer the fragile species others remembered. Back in the VXS capital, Supreme Commander Zulker leaned into his chair with a smug grin. They'll be trembling now, he said confidently. His generals nodded in agreement. No species had ever refused the Dominion's ultimatum. But Zulker was wrong. Humanity did not submit. In the hours that followed, Earth's leaders convened virtually from across the globe. Military officers, scientists, diplomats, all offered their opinions. Some urged negotiation, others recommended strategic delay. But Garfield remained composed. She knew Earth held something the Vexos had never seen, a secret strength, a force they had never dared unleash upon the galaxy. When the Vexus deadline came and went, humanity responded not with fear, not with begging, but with silence. No submission, no retreat, just a calm, cryptic message, we will not kneel. Back in the VXS Council, Zulker's face twisted in disbelief. They think they can defy the Dominion, he growled. His generals exchanged nervous glances. They had seen defiance before, but never from a species like this. Zulker snarled, we will crush them. Let them feel the cost of arrogance. The Zero Fleet, the largest in Dominion history, was summoned. Each battle cruiser was capable of leveling entire cities. Zulker would make an example of Earth, not just to punish humanity but to remind the galaxy why the Vexus ruled. Begin the strikes, he ordered. Let's see how long their pride lasts. The Vexus launched their first attacks, targeting distant human colonies. Isolated settlements on the outer rim were obliterated in brutal, calculated strikes. Just hours later, VX's commanders celebrated. They believed Earth would now panic, beg, or crumble. But they were wrong. In New Geneva, General Garfield watched the destruction unfold on screen. Her face remained steel. This isn't emotional, she said quietly. They're trying to provoke us. They want us to overreact. Colonel Beckett added, pull our fleets too soon, make mistakes. Garfield nodded. Let them think we're weak. Let them think we're afraid. Another general leaned in. What's the next move? Garfield stood slowly. Her presence commanded silence. We watch, we wait, and we let them waste their strength. Vex's attacks continued, more vicious with each wave. Their victories were broadcast proudly across the interstellar network. To the rest of the galaxy, it seemed like humanity was losing. Rumors spread that humans were cowards, that Earth would soon fall. But the VX didn't know they were being lured into a trap. Supreme Commander Zulker grew impatient. Despite the devastation, Earth gave no reply, no retaliation, no surrender. He paced his war room in fury. They won't dare strike back, one general insisted. They know they'd be crushed. But unease spread in the chamber. Something about humanity was different. They should have broken, but they hadn't. In silence, Earth had studied every VX-US movement, every raid, every assault. They had watched and learned, identified weaknesses, catalogued strategies. Colonel Beckett glanced at Garfield. We've given them enough rope, he said. Soon they'll hang themselves. They think we're silent because we're scared, Garfield replied softly. They don't understand, silence is our preparation. As Vexo's forces moved closer to Earth's core systems, their arrogance peaked. Their broadcasts mocked humanity's supposed cowardice. They celebrated early victory. Zulker was convinced total domination was inevitable. But he had made one fatal mistake, he underestimated humanity. And they were about to find out just how wrong they were. The last attack will strike them where it hurts, he said, certain that Earth would eventually fall to its knees. However, Earth waited peacefully, unfazed. Supreme Commander Zulker's fleet was prepared just outside Earth's orbit. A huge A-class fleet of battleships hovered, brimming with weapons, prepared to turn the world into ash. Standing at the head of his command ship, his keen eyes looked over the blue-green world below. Scornful, he hissed, this is their last chance. Give them a final message and offer them the courtesy of surrender. The transmission was delivered to the Deep Command Center on Earth. General Adrian Garfield, in New Geneva, observed the flashing VX-US notification. The voice of Zulker came icy on the screen, brimming with conceit. Earth, we're at your doorstep. Give up now, or face complete annihilation. There was silence in the room momentarily. The weight of the approaching struggle pressed down on everyone. However, Garfield maintained her composure, steely eyes glued to the screen. They believe they've cornered us, she said, turning to Colonel Mark Beckett. In silence, they are unaware of what's next. For eons, humanity had evolved. Its secret defenses were a last resort, one so terrible it was never meant to be used. It was designed to guarantee humanity's existence against any force, no matter how powerful. It was only referred to as the button. It wasn't a destructive weapon in the conventional sense, but a tool, a precisely focused pulse designed to counteract the biological composition of any non-human. Garfield stood over the modest console in the center of the command room. Her finger lingered above the button. Around her, those in the room felt the tension. No fear, just silent resolve. They were ready. They had prepared for this day. Beckett spoke gently, his eyes meeting hers. It's time. Garfield nodded. Turn on the last protocol. Under direction, Beckett entered the sequence. The space grew darker. The console lights began to flash. Air filled with a soft hum. The system ready to release its terrifying force. The pulse would not be perceptible, immediate and invisible. Out in space, Zulker watched, and it was already too late. His fleet took up formation, weapons locked on Earth. He smiled, relishing the thrill of triumph so close he could taste it. He gave the order to fire. But without warning, something changed. An unexplained wave rushed across the fleet, something the Vaxis couldn't see or feel. On Zulker's ship, military personnel froze, their hands locked above the controls. An odd quiet fell. The crew stood motionless in the middle of the formation. Zulker's eyes widened in disbelief. He tried to speak, but his voice was gone. He looked to his generals, they too were frozen still, eyes open but lifeless. Panic flickered in his own. He tried to move, but his body betrayed him. The realization struck like a hammer, something terrible had happened. Back on Earth, Garfield observed the readings. The pulse had done its work. The Vaxis fleet, once so dangerous, now drifted lifeless in space. No explosion, no fire, no devastation, only silence. After pressing the button, the war had ended before it had even begun. Beckett glanced up from his console. It worked. The entire fleet is neutralized. Garfield exhaled slowly, the weight lifting from her shoulders. They never anticipated it, she muttered. Their pride made them blind. From a distance, the once invincible Vexus fleet floated. Zulker was still, dead. His ship's dark. He stared blankly at the planet he had just lost without a single shot fired. Their pride had cost them everything. All across Earth, humanity stood triumphant, not through brute force, but through calm, precise strategy. The galaxy would remember this day, the day the mighty Vaxis dominion fell to the species they had so foolishly underestimated.